Imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on YouTube. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, Imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it's I. It's been a while. Your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, and your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, as John Campion once called me, still undefined, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett. And I am robcasting at you from, as you can see, the refit Robservatory. I am like Mr. Scott and Decker, still building, still constructing, still making things happen. Although there is a refit Enterprise right there, with the navigational disc falling out. But there you go. This will be, when you see it, it's going to change just momentarily. We're here, and we're back, baby. We're back. It's going to be a little bit of a process, but it's happening. There's all kinds of cool stuff going on in here. Obviously, you've been able to see me on the John Campion show, doing mailbags, doing the show. I'm having a great time, really enjoying myself. But you know, something's happened. I mean, I haven't done a Robservations in almost a month. And people are like, Rob, you got Picard, you got Strange New Worlds. You going to talk about this shit? Well, okay. You know, I get this all the time.
Rob, why do you watch it? If you don't like it, why do you watch it? Why do you watch modern Star Trek?
I mean, here's the funny thing. I consider myself a scholar. I've said before, if I had a PhD in anything, it would probably be like my friend Thomas Parham, who did write his dissertation, his PhD dissertation on Star Trek. I would probably do that. I mean, I can't not watch Star Trek. For me, I've been watching it since I was 5 years old. It's been a constant in my life. Not like the constant on Lost, but the constant in my life. And, you know, my loathing of modern Star Trek since 2009 is on record. I've talked about it ad infinitum. It's boring. Nobody cares. They've listened to me. I mean, how many people are going to send me that Simpsons? It's so funny because people send me that Simpsons meme, you know, man shouting at clouds. So many people have sent it to me that the very act of sending me that Simpsons meme is the stupidest thing ever. And it's like, it pretty much encapsulates my hatred of modern Star Trek in a nutshell. That meme, that's all you can come up with? You got nothing? You're going to send me the same meme 100,000 other people have sent me before? I know everyone thinks it's their idea and they think it's clever. And far be it for me to say no to them. Well, of course. Wow, you know what? There were gardeners here earlier today when I was trying to do an interview, and now apparently they've come back. I mean, I did an interview. I thought that they were not coming back, hence me doing this show. But whatever, I'll go on. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that Star Trek has been with me for a long time, my entire life. I love it. It's my favorite franchise. You know, in 96, of course, I was a paid Star Trek consultant for Viacom licensing. In later on, a couple years later, I worked on the Star Trek The Experience attraction in Las Vegas, cutting all the videos that you used to see going through there. And of course, in 1999, I wrote and directed and edited Free Enterprise, a movie about my obsession with Star Trek that stars William Shatner and Eric McCormick from Will and Grace, two Canadians, both Emmy winners. And then from 2012 to 2014, I was employed by CBS to create new programming, documentaries for their Blu-ray releases of Star Trek: The Next Generation and Enterprise. I always feel like I have to say that because I feel like I don't want to just be that guy railing on that fan, just railing on Star Trek. But let me take you back. I'm going to tell you something I haven't. The first time I ever articulated this was the other day on our Road Trippin' with Rob podcast that I'm doing every morning. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. Mike Bodden and I, as I drive to John Campia's studio now from my new location, I do a podcast with him. You can get it wherever with Mike, and we just kind of just shoot the shit, talk about whatever's on our minds. And it's not the most well-produced thing in the world because I'm, of course, driving when I'm doing it. But because my phone's sitting in the caddy and I can talk through my car, that's how I'm making it work. So check that out. But so the other day I was articulating this and I realized I'd never actually spoken this aloud. And let me explain what it is. So in the original classic Star Trek, space, the final frontier, these are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Kirk's opening narration. By the way, one of the benefits of being here is the dogs are here. And Gilbert, would you like to come up and show people? Would you like to? I mean, I you know what? If I had a gun, wait a minute, because everyone likes part of this show used to be the dogs, and then they couldn't come in where I was, but now they can. Now they can come in. So, watch. If you haven't met Gilbert, he's a 70-pound Bernedoodle. He's 75% poodle, 25% Bernese Mountain Dog. Come on up, Gilbert. Here he is. Just a good boy, buddy. Do you like that gummy bear? You get one gummy bear and you come look. Say hello to the folks at home, buddy. Yeah. You'll be a good boy. That's right. Now, no. Yeah, you have to get, you can't, no. You get one. Gummy bears aren't good for dogs. You just are a fiend for them. So get down. And do you want to talk to anybody? Do you have anything to say? Do you want to, like, bark or something? I mean, he is very loquacious. Would you like to say something? Okay, well, you got to get down now, buddy. You get down, and Tallulah, come here. Gilly, let Tallulah come here. Tallulah, come here. No. Gilbert, let Tallulah, come on. Come on up. You gotta come up. You gonna come up? Come on, we're live. All right, well, if they don't want to come up, I can't make them. Tallulah, Gilbert will come up. All right, Tallulah won't. Come here, Sebastian. Since Gilbert, you gotta get down. Okay, where's Sebastian? Sebastian, come here, buddy. Poor Sebastian. I know I'm in the middle of all this. Sebastian, come here. Come on. Oh, the wee woo guy. Number one. Oh, buddy. Here's Sebastian. Look at Sebastian. Now, Sebastian. Oh, here's Sebastian and Tallulah. Sebastian. Oh, look. Yeah, that's right. You be loquacious. Yeah. Yes. Right into the mic. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm talking about. Here, you want some gummy bears? There you go, buddy. You want it? Here. Sebastian is a standard poodle. Will probably be about 60 pounds. Right, buddy? Is it true? Yeah. And Tallulah is an Irish doodle. She is half Irish setter and half poodle. All right, buddy. Okay, here we go. Oh, you gotta get down. Ready? Gonna get down. Oh, yes, bumpers. Come on. There you go. Oh, stop it, Tallulah. Stop, Tallulah. Anyway. Hey. Stop. See, now I've started it. Now I've started a big thing. Anyway. Hey, guys. Stop. Hey, wee woo guy. So anyway, where I was at. So I was thinking about James T. Kirk's opening narration for Star Trek. Space, the Final Frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. It's a 5-year mission. Tallulah, stop. What is your problem? Don't do that. Be a good girl. Leave wee woo guy alone. Yeah. So his opening narration, according to me, Gilbert, see, once I get him started. Tallulah, stop. Dogservations. It is. So the opening See, I knew this was a bad idea. Having the show. Come on, guys. Go sit down. Be good. So the opening narration, in my mind, in my head canon, now that we're getting to it 12 minutes into the show, that head canon was in my mind James T. Kirk's first log entry as the captain of the Enterprise. That's, in my own mind, that's how I thought of it. And the reason that Captain Picard used it in Next Generation was because, as a student of history and the lineage of the Enterprise, he went back and that was his first log entry too, after reading Kirk's, because he thought it would be kind of fun. So, he put it on the record. So that, in my mind, was where that came from. So cut to Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. So in my mind, and maybe this will go a little ways. What do you want, Gilbert? You can't. No more. No moss, buddy. In my headcanon, this has existed when I was a kid. That's where Kirk's narration came from. Now Spock used it at the end of Wrath of Khan, and obviously because Kirk, he'd either read Kirk's log entry or he had remembered it or something. Now, cut to Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds uses that opening narration. Now, Gilbert, stop arguing me. A lot of people would say, oh, but Rob, that's like Star Trek, it's fine. But see, the thing is, it doesn't belong to Strange New Worlds. It's not theirs. They're taking it from something from before. They're taking it from the original series. Also, the whole idea of that opening, and I understand people say, well, Rob, that's iconic Star Trek. That's the way it's supposed to be. But it bothers me if you want to open a show, a new Star Trek show. I mean, I think about, like, I'm hit and miss with Voyager, but Jerry Goldsmith's Voyager theme is beautiful. And the images of the Voyager opening are very similar to Strange New Worlds. So my initial impression of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is what I wanted to discuss today, is that it's a copy. And everyone's like, well, Rob, it's a return to form. It's a return to episodic Star Trek. I'm like, I don't want episodic Star Trek. I don't want a return to how Star Trek was in 1966, 67, 68, and 69. I don't want that. I've never wanted that. The thing that always appealed to me about Star Trek is that it grew and changed. There was the original series when I was a kid. There was the animated series. Then there was Star Trek the Motion Picture, which moved that continuity forward, and refitted the Enterprise form and function. You understood where everything was. You understood why things happened. And then, of course, you had the movies. Our main characters were allowed to grow and age, and that was incorporated into the story. In 1987, then they had, of course, the Next Generation, the advent of the Next Generation. And with the Next Generation, 100 years in the future, starship design had changed. Different philosophies had taken hold. There was a counselor on the bridge, new and different. Star Trek Deep Space Nine, it's a fort out on the frontier, new and different. There was continuity between the shows. There was even a design aesthetic that they followed. Uniforms made sense, and you could follow that lineage. And part of my fandom was because I would buy those books, and I would that would follow that lineage and turn them into something. In my mind, it made it much more real and much more tangible, and it was all chart. You could chart it all, and it felt real, like this fictitious universe that I loved and immersed myself in was being added to constantly by people who understood the universe and worked within the lines of that universe. And so part of my fandom was it all kind of worked together. Then there were Star Trek novels and Star Trek comics. And the writers of the novels and comics, for the most part, Gold Key being a major exception, for the most part, those comics continued on that lineage. And the people that wrote those things really understood Trek. There were books that were being published called The Best of Trek. And there was, I think, almost 20 of them that were published. And they were essays written by people that examined continuity, examined characters, examined everything. I mean, and so to be a Star Trek fan, was very much a participatory fandom. You would go to conventions, you would talk to people, you had to seek out these things. There were even companies that made blueprints of ships that and the blueprints that these companies made even followed the pattern that Franz Joseph Designs established in 1975 when they released the Enterprise blueprints and the Starfleet Technical Manual. So all of this stuff worked together, worked in tandem to for my fandom. Now, in 2000 and Star Trek Enterprise went off the air in 2005. Now, that was sort of the end of Rick Berman, who co-created Enterprise, went all the way back to the first season of Next Generation with Gene Roddenberry. He worked with Gene Roddenberry. So he tried to understand and tried to incorporate Roddenberry's philosophy into Star Trek. And that was true from 1987 to 2005. 25 years of Star Trek, or 18 years of Star Trek did he produce, 25 seasons of Star Trek over 18 years. This was incredible. Now, while some of it was more successful than others, it still had the DNA of Roddenberry in it, because Berman had worked with Roddenberry. So had Michael Piller. So had many of the writing staff. They'd met Roddenberry. They'd interacted with Roddenberry. They'd had dealings with Roddenberry. And then Star Trek after 2005, the Jeff Jedrinson script for it was called Star Trek The Beginning, which was actually a canonical extension of Enterprise, and it was going to be the first of a trilogy, a proposed trilogy about the Romulan War, was fantastic. And Cary McCluggage, it was written under his leadership at Paramount, was going to get made. And it was only one draft was ever written. I thought it was a terrific script. It dealt with new characters coming out of Starfleet Academy with a mix of older characters, but mostly new. And I thought it was pretty damn good. Really enjoyed it. Not that it didn't need a rewrite or anything, but it never got made because Cary McCluggage, his regime at Paramount, was replaced. But you can find that script online. And I liked it. I thought it was good. Now, in 2000, and I want to say 6 or 7, J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot and Skydance, which is the de facto production company that they're the de facto financiers of Paramount's slate, they took over Star Trek. And they made Star Trek 09. And for the first time in Star Trek's history, they went back. So from 1966 to 2005, Star Trek always moved forward. Yeah, Enterprise was a prequel, but it was all new, different. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. But it was still things we hadn't seen before, characters we didn't know, experiences and things that we hadn't seen yet. And when they went back, occasionally, like in the 4th season, they went back a lot and touched on canonical Star Trek history. Some of it was really good. Some of it was, a little iffy. But you did get episodes like In a Mirror Darkly that I quite enjoyed. It was a romp. But what was interesting about Enterprise is when they showed up with a Constitution-class ship from the 23rd century, it looked like the Enterprise, or actually the Defiant, from the 23rd century. So their design aesthetic, Star Trek is a period piece from a future that never will be. And the way that they treated it in the Roddenberry era of Star Trek, or the Roddenberry-Berman era of Star Trek, was very respectful. Trials and Tribulations, the 30th anniversary Star Trek episode of Deep Space Nine, where they actually went back to the original Enterprise, was delightful. It was lovely. And they went back, they recreated the sets. There was nothing wrong with the sets. It's just a question of how you light them. But anyhow, when we got to Star Trek 09, they went back and they wanted to tell us something new, the origins of how Kirk and Spock met. But they were going back to the Kirk and Spock era. Now, all of this stuff had been dealt with in Star Trek novels. So anybody who was a Star Trek fan, as I was, and having owned all the Star Trek novels, all of this had been dealt with. There was nothing new, and if it was going to be dealt with, it better have been dealt with as well as it was in the books. It was not. It was Star Trek that was incredibly dumbed down, and they tried to turn it into something else. They wanted, and the impulse is right, a successful action adventure, shoot 'em up, fast-paced franchise, more along the lines of Star Wars than Star Trek. The problem was, what you were watching, and the problem that I had is that the Star Trek characters, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, they weren't just the young men that they were in the 60s. They were also the men that retired in the 90s. We'd watched their life cycle. Now, that was part of the thing about those actors, is they were so endearing and they so embodied those roles that they were brought out. Star Trek was a failed TV series. It was canceled after 3 seasons, but they brought them back in '79 and put them in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, one of the most expensive movies at the time that was ever made. And so there was a continuity, a history, and a lineage that was created by Star Trek: The Motion Picture that had been previously created in the first season of Star Trek: The Original Series by using the failed pilot, The Cage, which was rejected by the network, that had number one, that had Captain Pike in it. But they wove it into a 2-part Star Trek story that was brilliant. So if you were a Star Trek fan, there was a fictional history of the Star Trek universe being created within the storytelling of Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and the Starship Enterprise. You had 11 years ago, or maybe 13 years, I forget. But Spock served under Pike for 11 years. So you had Pike's Enterprise, and then in the animated series, you met Robert April in the last episode, the Counterclock Incident, and you found out that he was actually the first captain of the Constitution-class Enterprise, and then there was Pike, and then Kirk took over. So it was unique to pop culture, especially TV and movies, to have this now history that you could follow. You could fill in the blanks if you wanted to, which they did in comics and they did in novels. That was wild for a TV show from the 60s, to have now a movie and to be able to chart the lineage and the technology of all of this. It's established. So if you're a Star Trek fan, you have The Cage. It was made in 64, 65. Then you had Where No Man Has Gone Before, which is, or Where No Man Has Gone Before, which is the pilot for the second pilot commission, the first appearance of Captain Kirk. That was different than the production version of Star Trek. So you had The Cage, which is really the menagerie. So anybody who goes and watches The Cage first, you shouldn't. That show was never aired until 1988. You have to watch The Cage within the context of the original series, or you're not doing it right. At least I don't think so. If you're trying to recreate the way it was for us. So you now have this history. So if you're a Star Trek fan, that history becomes part of what you're thinking about, what you love about the show. And, things came out like the technical manual that started to chart the design sensibilities and all of this other stuff. And it was really well done, and it fueled fandom. So going to 2009 and watching a really dumbed down version of our characters. Sure, Carl Urban is channeling DeForest Kelley, but he's just basically Star Trek 09. The reason that I don't like it very much at all. Hey, it's beautifully made. The cast is fine. It's the writing. It's always the writing. And in that show, in that movie, the characters are dumb. I mean, and how dunderheaded is that movie? You hire Anton Yelchin. I've said this a million times for longtime viewers of the show. Anton Yelchin is a native Russian-speaking Russian. He speaks Russian. But in the movie, they saddle him with a ridiculous Russian accent to have one joke where the computer can't understand what he's saying. Why would you do that? The Joke of Chekhov, we know Walter Koenig had a ridiculous Russian accent, but in the show they didn't. He was just from Russia. The joke that he would tell is that everything good that ever came from human civilization came from Russia. That was the joke. But when Anton Yelchin is talking to the computer in a weird Russian accent and he's not understood by the computer, they're breaking the fourth wall. They're making a joke out of Walt. They're referring back to Walter Koenig's accent. Chekhov is Russian. In the in-universe situation that we find ourselves in the original series, Chekhov is a Russian. That's what he is. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking,
Well, Rob, Star Trek, it broke continuity. It didn't always get things right. Like what about when Khan says, "I never forget a face"?
and he never met Chekhov in Space Seed. Well, here's something that drives me crazy about fandom. Khan knows all 430 crew members of the Enterprise. He read through the technical manuals. His superior intellect. He knows everyone. The only reason that we didn't see Chekhov in the first season of Star Trek is because he was assigned to another part of the ship. That's the explanation. You can't sit there and go, well, that's a continuity error. No, it's something we haven't seen. Now, am I making that up? Yes, but it's plausible. Khan says he saw Chekhov. He never forgets a face. He read about Chekhov. He read his dossier or whatever, and he knew who Chekhov was, just like he would know any of the 430 members of the Enterprise crew. So to me, I've never thought that was any kind of a continuity gaffe. People like, oh, Khan did not meet everyone on the ship. He knew who they all were, though, because that's what he does. So when you get to Star Trek 09, like I've said before, your villain, Nero, is probably the dumbest villain in the history of film. Not just science fiction film, but film. The man's angry because the Hobart star went nova and destroyed the Romulan homeworld, killing his family and everyone he loves. Well, he's gone back in time. I mean, anyone who, wow, if you go back in time, what's the first thing you want to do? Go write something that happened to you. Go fix your problems. The first thing he should have done upon encountering the Kelvin is be like, once he realizes he's back in time, he should have made a beeline for the Romulan homeworld and said, hey, in 90 years hence or whatever, the star's going to go nova. You guys should be ready for this shit. If you don't believe me, look at this Borg technology that I've got with my mining vessel. How do I know it's Borg technology? Because I read the prequel comic that Alex Kurtzman and Bob Orsi wrote. So there you go. Nero's a stupid villain. And not only was he captured by Klingons in a deleted scene and put in jail for 25 years, but when he comes back, he's angry and just wants to blow up Earth and Vulcan. When still, even though 25 years have gone by, go back to the Romulan homeworld and prevent the very disaster that you're pissed off about. How about doing that? So when I watch Star Trek 09, it's just a monumentally dumb film. And when we get to if you don't believe me, just look at the Kobayashi Maru scene. No one exactly knows what happened. We haven't seen that depicted on screen until that time. And it was ridiculous. And if you watch a deleted scene, it wasn't even Kirk who reprogrammed the simulation. He seduced a beautiful green Orion woman and got her to do it. But then he's so glib, it's so stupid that it turns the whole thing into a joke, which sucked. And, yeah. So, anyway, I won't go on because we're here to talk about Strange New Worlds. As soon as it opened and we hear Pike delivering Kirk's narration, I'm like, once again, here is a TV show that is a recreation of the original series that has very little creatively to offer that is new. Star Trek Discovery is a prequel to the original series. None of it links up. None of it matches. There's no canonical reasoning for anything. So the kind of fan I am, who has 50 years of books and reference material and all that's thrown out the window. None of it even makes sense. And I'll tell you something. What's really interesting is the actual design of the Discovery was from Star Trek history. It was the redesign of the Enterprise that Ralph McQuarrie, yes, that Ralph McQuarrie, had drawn when Ken Adam was the production designer of a movie that never got made called Star Trek Planet of the Titans that was going to be made in the 70s. And that the Discovery's design with the sort of triangular secondary hull, that was their design of the Enterprise. So when I first saw that he was going to use that design, I'm like, that's pretty cool. Now, the Spore drive and all that shit was not in Brian Fuller's conception of the series. The Spore stuff and Stamets was all about terraforming, but I won't get into that now. So anyway, starting with Star Trek 09, the original Star Trek series was written by some of the great fantasists of the day. Richard Matheson, Charles Beaumont, Rod Serling himself, George Clayton Johnson. There was so many, and those guys wrote books, they wrote plays, they wrote short stories, they wrote screenplays. They were consummate writers, and they also were literary minds. the people that are making Star Trek now have only seen TV and movies. They don't have the literary background that the people that originally conceived of Star Trek had. And another thing, they've all clearly been to therapy, because most modern Star Trek is about people's feelings, which is kind of the exact opposite of what the original series was. People had feelings, but remember, Star Trek was an action-adventure show seen through the prism of a sci-fi allegory. And modern Star Trek is more concerned with people's feelings because everyone's, I guess, wants to be self-actualized or whatever. But when I saw Anson Mount delivering, and let's we not forget, Anson Mount is fan-fucking-tastic. He's incredible. He's a great actor. I think he's terrific. He looks great. He embodies Pike. And let's not forget, the whole reason Strange New Worlds exists is because people responded to his portrayal of Pike. But then, of course, Discovery had to go because Discovery is creatively bankrupt, and so as everyone who's ever written for that show is. Once again, they had to go back to the menagerie from the first season of the original series. And because of Klingon time crystals on Borath, he was able to see his own death. Which, by the way, is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And because once you've seen your own death in this show, they want him to obsess over it. You know, his big problem is, I have to leave the Enterprise. I've seen my own death. I can't be a captain anymore. Dude, the whole point of seeing the future is so you can stop it from happening. I mean, you saw your own death. You know what's going to happen. You can change that. And yet they're leaning into it. They're leaning because first of all, they always lean into dumb ideas. I mean, maybe at the end of the first season, Pike will be like, well, you know what? Now that I know when my death is going to come, I'll stop it from happening. I mean, that would be the normal inclination. But no, I've seen my own death. I can't be a starship captain anymore. Whatever, dude. But anyway, and then his narration where he steals the narration from the original series. I'm like, and also half the show, you've got Nurse Chapel, you've got Uhura, you've got Dr. Mbenga. Half the cast was secondary cast members in the original series. And what's funny is the great character, Dr. Boyce, who was in the cage, the old white dude, the doctor, that had this really compelling relationship with Pike, he's not even on the show. And I'm like, where's Dr. Boyce? Because I would think that if you're looking at the cage for inspiration, why not use that scene? The scene with Boyce and Pike is one of the great scenes of Star Trek. I'm telling you. But you know, and why couldn't Pike change it? Pike can't. Of course you can. You can change anything. You can do anything you want. He's not locked into his own death that he knows it's going to happen. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. But anyway, so already I start this show, and I have hope, even though the opening narration and the opening sequence, I'm like, okay, it's Voyager again. It's the original series, whatever. But then we have this voiceover with Una, number one, talking about first contact situations or whatever. And I'm like, okay, don't tell me. Why are you telling me this? Why do I have a character telling me what a first contact situation means? Next Generation has an episode called First Contact. They also have a movie called First Contact, which has a first contact at the end. We already know this. Why are you telling us? Show it to us. I know they wanted to set up a mystery, but if they really want to go to an episodic story, tell us an episodic story. Why are you wasting valuable screen time explaining what the ramifications of a first contact story are? We're an audience that knows what that's like. We saw Close Encounters in 1977. How many different shows or movies or books have we read about first contact with aliens? Peter Watts' Blind Sight is a book I talk to a lot of people about. I really like that book. It's kind of dense. It's difficult to deal with, but it's a great book about a first contact situation. Arrival, which they ripped off for Discovery Season 4 because they can't come up with anything original at all, deals with first contact. So I'm now listening to a voiceover about a first contact situation as if Akiva Goldsman has never pondered this before. And as if the audience for Star Trek has never considered what it would be like to even ourselves be thrust into a first contact situation. I mean, So it started off the show really pissing me off. I'm just like, why are you telling me this? I get this. And so we find out that number one's missing. Pike has left the service, and then he is not going to be a captain anymore, and we see him riding through the snowy wastes of Canada. It's pretty cool. Anson Mount looks great. Very handsome man. I believe him as he has that starship swagger. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you something. Captain Pike looks more... Anson Mount looks more like a starship captain than Chris Pine does, than Sonequa Martin Green does. He's the only person, and certainly more than Picard does now, he looks like a starship captain. It's perfect casting. So that's great. You love him. Ethan Peck, I think, is horribly miscast as Spock. But he's doing the best he can with what has been written. Then we see Ethan Peck, and we get to meet T'Pring, and we see this ridiculous scene between the two of them that, again, let's dip into amok time. Let's not do something original. Let's go back and make this whole show not stand on its own. The original Next Generation, while they did have Dr. McCoy on the first episode, they never referred to him by name, and we knew it was kind of a good Easter egg. They didn't really refer. There was a few little dialogue references, but the first time a character came back from the original series in the Next Generation was in the third season. Mark Leonard Sarek came back, and that in itself was incredibly clever because they had the same actor play him. You know, and they keep going back to that well. More people. Modern Star Trek 2009. Let's bring back Sarek and Amanda. Let's bring back Sarek and let's make Sonequa Martin Green Spock's sister and all that crap. But anyway, so... And then Pike agreed. And of course, there was a lot of controversy about Robert April. You know, they're going to bring back Robert April, and they cast a great actor in the role, black actor. And of course, Robert April, as introduced in the Counterclock incident, was an older white guy. It doesn't make sense. The actor playing Robert April is he's either a year younger or a year older than Anson Mount. Captain Pike should be 20 years older than or 20 years younger than Robert April because he served under him. He was his first officer. Now they're the same age. So, whatever. So, anyway, there's a whole First Contact story, and once again, Star Trek used to be allegory. Now we literally see footage of the December 6th, the January 6th insurrection in Washington, D.C., the Second Civil War. This was more on the nose than Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. This is not allegory. This is preachiness. This entire story, this First Contact story, I am being preached to. Now, here's the thing. Great stories all preach. They all have something to say. They all have, but they deliver it to you in such a way that they give you something to think about. They don't tell you what to think. Modern Star Trek, Stacey Abrams is president of the Federation. And I am a leftist Democrat. Let me tell you. I thought of myself, I'm more of a classical liberal with maybe libertarian leanings, if anything. But man, there's no wonder that the Democrats get their asses kicked because their messaging is way off. And the messaging of Star Trek is so on the nose that it's annoying. It's belittling. It's belittling to me as an audience member. Like, who are you to tell me about my political leanings today? Give me an allegorical story that I can ponder and turn over in my head. Please consider me an intelligent human being. The on-the-nose pandering of all of this modern Star Trek was all over this episode of Strange New Worlds. And I want smarter, better writing. I feel like these people have an understanding of what Star Trek is. Everyone's fucking making speeches all the time. Star Trek is an action-adventure show. Occasionally, Kirk would deliver a speech or somebody would deliver a speech, but it wasn't every episode. And please stop going to therapy. I've had enough. No more therapy talk. No more getting in touch with their feelings. You're out. Star Trek has always been an elitist show about the best of the best who are out there on the very edge of the universe, and they can die at any time. Their feelings are not there. If you're talking about your feelings, you're not doing it right. And I understand now everybody wants to see themselves in Star Trek rather than aspire to be the people in Star Trek. They're like, oh, that's me. I'm Tilly. I'm just like her. But anyway, there was an article that came out that I want to share with you because I've tweeted this out, but it has stayed in my mind. It was on Engadget, and it was written by Daniel W. Cooper on May 1st. There are reasons that Star Trek Strange New Worlds exists beyond the need to keep Trek content pumping, so nobody thinks too hard about canceling Paramount Plus. It's designed to quell some of the discontent in Star Trek's vast and vocal fan base about the direction of the live-action shows have traveled under the stewardship of Uber producer Alex Kurtzman. It's also, by the way, Alex Kurtzman, again, he directed the first 4 episodes and is the creator of the Man Who Fell to Earth sequel series starring Chiwetel Ejiofor. Does he ever want to create something that's his own? Didn't he make some movie that was his own once? I mean, does he have to go back and always sequelize or work and build off someone else's work? I don't understand why. It's also a slightly bewildered response to the criticism of its predecessors, Discovery and Picard, made by the same people behind those 2 shows. In short, it's designed to appeal to people who, when asked what their favorite live-action Trek show is, unironically say, The Orville. We open on Christopher Pike, the once and future captain of the Enterprise, after his sojourn leading Discovery in its 2nd season. There, a magical time crystal told him that in less than a decade he'll be non-fatally blown up in a training accident. Armed with a standard issue grief beard, he refuses the call to return to the stars until the siren song of non-serialized space adventure becomes too great. It isn't long before he and Spock are reunited to rescue Rebecca Romaine's number 1 from a spy mission on a pre-warp planet gone wrong. Sadly, Paramount's restrictive embargo on discussing the first few episodes forbids me from discussing much of what I've seen, so things will get vaguer from here on out. But this was before the episode aired. It looks like it was August 2020 when Alex Kurtzman said that the show would be episodic rather than serialized. But it is serialized as well. That's the problem. Immediately when you meet Captain Pike in this show, he's dealing with the ramifications of what happened in Discovery, and we're going to deal with this story for the rest of the series and his death. So it is serialized. It's just more episodic. This was a way to address the criticism of the heavily serialized, go-nowhere, do-nothing, grim, dark mystery box stories that sucked so much of the joy from Discovery and Picard. Strange New Worlds is, instead, a deliberate throwback in style of the original series, albeit with serialized character stories. So while we visit a new planet each week, characters still retain their scars and lessons learned from their experiences. My question is this. Serialized storytelling is fucking great. It just has to be written well. We haven't seen serialized Star Trek yet written well. What we're getting is a throwback to more of a classic Star Trek feel, which again is going backwards instead of the actual canonical Star Trek being ripped back to pre-TOS era days. We're now getting a throwback to a television format that's no longer the most viable format. We're watching an antiquity before our eyes. I am not a fan of going back to this episodic format, but serializing the characters. As I said once, I think I said it on an episode of Inglorious Trexperts, I would love to have seen, pick your favorite original series episode. I always use A Taste of Armageddon as my go-to in this case. I would love to have seen an entire season of Star Trek telling that same story. For those of you who don't know, in A Taste of Armageddon, the Enterprise rolls up to the planet Aminiar, and Aminiar is at war with Vendikar. Enterprise beams down, meets the ruling body of Aminiar, and finds out that they've been fighting a war for 1,000 years, but instead of actually shooting real ordnance at each other, they're using computers to fight the war. They're fighting a virtual war where the computers decide which cities are bombed and who is killed. But instead of actually using real bombs, once a computer decides who's dead, you have to You, if you don't, a real war will break out. You, if you're declared dead, have to go to a disintegration booth, step into it, and be disintegrated. Be killed. Be murdered. Fascinating stuff. And, of course, our characters are horrified because they've normalized war. They've normalized the mass extermination of humanoid beings, and they've made it palatable, which is horrifying. Now, this, now it would play even better. What if you did a whole season where the Enterprise has to go to a Meteor, then has to go to Vendikar, then has to get involved in the planet and meet all these different kinds of people and really examine our culture or multiple cultures through the action, adventure, science fiction, allegorical lens of Star Trek? That could be a great 10-episode serialized story that could really get into the meat of social issues. It could also be action-adventure in the sense that Vendikar and Aminiar could start really shooting at the Enterprise, however you wanted to do it. But that would support a 10-episode story arc, and it could be great. This recent season of Picard that just wrapped up that I thought was absolutely god-awful, all it was referring to previous Star Treks. The Borg. They even referred to the backdoor pilot, the last episode of the second season of the original series, Assignment Earth, which had Robert Lansing and Terry Garr, Roberta Lincoln, and Gary Seven, that was going to be a potential TV series spinoff from Star Trek. They brought those characters back and then ultimately said that the alien race that sent them back to Earth turned out to be travelers from the next generation, of Wesley Crusher being one. So now Wesley Crusher has become one of the same creatures that sent back Roberta Lincoln and Gary Seven back to Earth in 1968 in Assignment Earth. It's just like, really? Can't you just just concentrate on your own work rather than retcon everyone else's? Anyway, let me go back to this article. There are more refreshed original series characters than just Pike, Spock, and Number One along for the ride. And I can't pronounce his last name. Babs Olusamokin is playing a more fleshed out version of Dr. Mbenga, who only appeared in 2 episodes of the original series, while Jess Bush takes over for Christine Chappell. And Andre Day Kim is the new Chief Kyle, who has been promoted from intermittent extra to transporter chief. Then there's Celia Rose Gooding as Cadet Uhura, whose semi-canonical backstory is now firmly enshrined as a dead parent, troubled childhood narrative. Because, God forbid, anybody in Star Trek doesn't have a troubled childhood. Why? Because everybody today is in therapy and talks about their problems. So, in the 23rd century or in the 32nd century, hey man, we're still arguing about pronouns and worried about grief and our mentally ill parents. Nothing's changed. That's not Star Trek. Anyway. Uhura aside, most of these roles were so underdeveloped in the 60s that they're effectively blank slates for the reboot. Oh, except that everyone is now hot and horny because this isn't just Star Trek, it's Star Trek that isn't afraid to show characters in bed with other people. Rounding out the cast is Christina Chong as security chief Leanne Noonien Singh, a descendant of Khan himself. Trek's in-series Hitler analog. For why? So, now, of course, there was a Noonien Singh on board the Enterprise before the Enterprise found fucking Khan. You know how absurd that is? Like, how do you get past that in a writer's room? I know Akiva Goldsman probably put his Oscar down on the desk and said, we're going to have a descendant of Khan on the ship. Why? Why remove that? Why does everybody have to go back to Wrath of Khan and Space Seed? Why do you do that? Why? It makes no sense. And I have to tell you, why do I hate modern Star Trek so much? Because I'm like, give me something new. Give me new characters. Uhura, Mbenga, Christine Chappell, Number One, Pike, Spock. That's not what Star Trek did up until 2009. It didn't. All of these new creators, they're lazy. They're using other people's work and other people's characters in order to tell new stories and make money. And they're not making that much money. But anyway, from what we learned of her so far, she also gets saddled with a troubled childhood, dead parent narrative. I mean, hey, those Gorns are nasty, as well as a case of the nasties. I expect her character will soften further over time, but right now she's officially the least fun character to spend time with. Of more interest is Melissa Navia's hotshot pilot Erica Ortegas, who can launch the odd quip into the mix when called upon, and Hemmer. Hemmer is a telepathic Anar, a type of Andorian first introduced in Enterprise, played by Bruce Horak. Like that idea. Think it's cool to see that character on the Enterprise. Like that idea. I do like that. Horak plays Hemmer as an old-fashioned lovable grump and mentor figure for some of the other characters and will clearly become a fan favorite. Yep, because you got to have that cliched alien character that everyone loves. And having now seen the first half of the first season, the second is already in production, I can say that Strange New Worlds will be a frustrating watch for fans. Frustrating because there are bones of a really fun, interesting Star Trek series buried deep inside Strange New Worlds. Sadly, it's trapped in the usual mix of faux melodrama, clanging dialogue, and dodgy plotting with the usual lapses in logic. Many writers are blind to their own flaws, which is why it's so amusing that this is what Kurtzman and company feel is a radical departure from their own work. Maybe I'm being unfair, but this is the 7th season of live-action Trek released under Kurtzman's purview. The 3 lead characters all had a full season of Discovery to bed in too, so it's not as if everyone's starting from cold. But despite the gentlest of starts, the show still manages to stumble out of the gate, trying to do too much and not enough at the same time. The first 4 episodes especially feels as if someone's trying to speed read you through a whole season's worth of plot in a bunch of partly disconnected episodes. An aside, ever since the mid-'80s, Paramount was desperate to reboot Star Trek with a younger cast to cash in on that Kirk Spock brand awareness. It eventually happened, but only in the 2009s with J.J. Abrams' not entirely successful attempt to reboot the series in cinemas. While a young Kirk movie made sense in the 80s, mining that seam for nostalgia today seems very weird indeed. After all, most people under the age of 50 will likely associate TNG as the one true Star Trek. The fact that not-so-closet Trek fan Rihanna's favorite character is Geordi LaForge speaks volumes about where millennial love lies. But I'd imagine a LaForge spin-off series was never going to fly with any generation of Paramount executives. Now let's talk about emotional continuity, because while people will take their experiences with them, little effort has been made to precede conflicts before they erupt. Arguably, the weakest episode of the bunch tries to cram 4 A-plots into its slender runtime, one of which is a coming-out narrative for one crew member. And once they've come out, another character reveals a deep-seated antipathy toward that group. It would be nice if we could have let this particular battle brew, but it's introduced about 25 minutes in and resolved with a punch fight by minute 40. We're not shown the person wrestling with the decision to come out and risk their professional and personal relationships beforehand either, just punch fight. Here's the thing. In the 23rd century, we're telling a coming out story? I mean, that's what allegory's for. Let's do that in an allegorical way rather than have a character. It's depressing to think that a human being whose sexuality they're born with would have a problem coming out in the 23rd century. I would think that in the age of Star Trek, where there are interspecies marriages, Spock and Amanda, a Vulcan and a human, the idea that somebody would have a problem with someone being gay or that they would feel that they couldn't come out in the 23rd century, where you have interspecies marriages from different races of people on different planets, that somebody's going to care if you're gay or that you can't just be who you are. That's what Star Trek was always best at, was showing us a positive future. And if someone's having a problem coming out and they can't be who they are, that's just about as the most depressing thing ever. And yet, hey, there's because no one's ever done a coming out story. I mean, this is another problem I have with modern Star Trek. They rely on the most cliche, overused television storylines from today. What's the science fiction version of coming out? Maybe you've become transhuman. You know, maybe do something else. Make it an allegorical sci-fi story that deals with the coming out narrative in a new and unique way. But to have a character like wrestling with their sexuality and coming out, come on, man. Do better. Be more creative. Don't fall back on the most cliche of TV storytelling tropes, which is what Star Trek always does. If they can, they will. All of these episodes don't properly resolve themselves either, which is the standard problem for any 50-minute TV show. It's hard to build a new world, flesh out new characters, establish and resolve their problems in the space of 2 episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But at least 3 episodes feature conclusions that either aren't clear or take place entirely off screen, explained away with a line of dialogue. I don't know if it was a production problem or if the majority of the show's 22 credited producers signed off on it. No, because a lot of the credited producers are people that introduced Pike back into Discovery in season 2. I don't think they have anything to do with the show, but they had good contracts. But it feels a hell of a lot like cheating. It's almost as if the writers wanted to provoke surprise in a subsequent scene. How did this get resolved over concocting a satisfying emotional narrative catharsis on screen? You know what was really good about resolving their storylines? The original series was. That's why it endures even to this day. That's why you're taking situations and characters, stealing them, and making them your own, rather than create things that are new out of whole cloth. And in fact, you don't even use Dr. Boyce, who was great. The actor was great. You don't even use that character. One of the pivotal characters in that episode, in the menagerie and in... Oops, sorry about that. Why? I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but, he's an older white dude. Let's not put him in the cast. It's so weird because that relationship was so great. In fact, I'm going to harp about this one particular episode because it's not content with just dropping one major character revelation. The episode basically stops 10 minutes early in order to, shock horror, drop another kind of dark secret about a crew member you barely know. One thing I said when Discovery started was that if you never got to know the characters in their default state, it's not valuable to see their bizarro world counterparts straight away. It's the same here. Strange New Worlds refuses to do the painstaking work of filling in these characters before they start changing as a result of their experiences together. The cast is all solid. I agree with that. I like the cast. And clearly working hard to elevate the material they've been given. Because the dialogue here is so rough that I think they all deserve danger money. Now, New Trek dialogue has always been awkward and or impenetrable, but it is beyond dreadful here. I agree with this. Kurtzman and company forgot the whole show, don't tell nature of screenwriting, and so characters just stand there and tell you everything constantly. Hence the opening scene of the first episode, talking about first contact. This is made worse because rather than giving space for these talented, well-paid actors to act, they're instead forced to say what they're feeling. Here's an example of that. In one episode, a character is trying and failing to remember a key memory from a traumatic experience in childhood that holds the key to saving the day. But rather than use the performer to convey that, they have the actor in question stand there blank-faced and say, "I am trauma blocked." And then there are scenes in which two characters describe what's happening in front of them with the sort of faux gravitas that only Adam West could pull off. But remember when I said there was promise? There really is. And you feel like if the writers could get out of their own way, things could improve massively. There's one episode you could easily describe as the actually fun comedy romp of the season, and it's great. Every Trek fan knows that the one with the whales is the most financially successful Trek property ever made, and yet whenever a new Trek property is made, it's always with the promise of more grimness, more darkness, more grit, more realism. Yet here we are with the fun episode reminding you why you watch Star Trek in the first place, and making the characters fun people to hang out with. If the series could continue in that slightly slower, more relaxed groove, then Strange New Worlds could be brilliant. You mean make it more like the Orville. I haven't talked much about the production design or effects, both of which are great. This new Enterprise is gorgeous inside and out, nor the series' music, with Naomi Mahmood's score being smart, subtle, and lush in all the right places. That's a compliment not shared with Jeff Russo's now standard fare, which neither matches the delicacy of a good prestige drama intro nor the soaring bombast associated with Star Trek. The best and worst thing I can say about the intro theme is that it sounds a lot like it came from one of Interplay's mid-90s CD-ROM games. Fundamentally, I can only really damn Strange New World with the faintest of praise. It can be fun every now and again, I would imagine, and hope that things will improve as time goes on, and the show's makers won't indulge their worst impulses. Given that I walked away from Picard after the end of its first dreary as hell run, the fact that I'm at least prepared to stick around here speaks volumes. So there you go. I like that article. I haven't seen all the episodes that he has, but based on the first episode, I feel pretty similar to where the author was coming from. I feel that Star Trek Strange New Worlds is once again a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. And they are copying characters, they're using characters. What I want is I want writers that aren't trying to write Star Trek. Write great stories. Take the Star Trek out of it. Here's if I was teaching a course on writing Star Trek, if Rob Burnett was teaching a masterclass course on teaching Star Trek, here's the first thing that I would say. Don't pay any attention to any previous Star Trek. Don't reference it. Don't think about it. Don't talk about it. Don't do any of that. I don't want to hear anything about any previous Star Trek ever. You haven't earned that right yet. What you need to do is tell me a great first contact story. And you know what? Learn how to use a teaser in 5 acts. How about that? Give me an opening scene rather than somebody walking through and talking about a first contact situation. Let's see it go awry. And oh, by the way, the Saladin class ship, the Archer that we see at the beginning, or the Una's starship, my God, why is it in modern Star Trek they cannot design? First of all, that starship with a single warp nacelle was first introduced in the Starfleet Technical Manual for Franz Joseph in 1975. Copy that. You know, they have to do things like the primary hull is connected to the engine by that little neck. That neck is decks. And yet in this, they have to, like, because I don't know why they like to do this. They split open like that, where there's structural integrity there. No. We're gonna make a hole through it and have it be 2 struts rather than one single piece of hull. Why? For why? And why is look at the design. Just look it up, and you look at the one they gave us this week and look at the original design and ask yourself which one looks better. I guarantee you'll give me the right answer. I mean, I see modern Star Trek as a collection of decisions made by people that are trying to pander to an audience that they have yet to win over. And it's weird to me. Don't write Star Trek stories. Write great, timeless stories using the characters within the Star Trek universe. I am tired of watching riffs on previous Star Trek episodes. When I can pick things out and tell you what episode they're from, you haven't been doing your job. You know, if you want to do a sequel to an episode, fine. Make it good. Make it good. Trials and Tribulations, what a clever way to sequelize The Trouble with Tribbles. I know they sequelized it in the animated series too, but Trials and Tribulations, very clever. You want to do a sequel to, my God, the Tholian Web? They did on Enterprise in A Mirror Darkly. Who would have thought that the Defiant would have gone back in time? I never would have. Don't write a Star Trek story. Write a great story. Tell me, if you're going to tell me a first contact story, don't make it look like a previous Star Trek story. Make it different. Do something new. Do something that's informed by us today. I mean, in Star Trek Discovery, they went back and they ripped off Denis Villeneuve's Arrival. Good on you. At least you're shooting for the moon there, buddy. But why not write something new? Why not start scouring scientific journals and coming up with interesting ideas? You know, there's a lot out there. And I can see that we're not going to get that. We're going to get variations on themes of stories we've already seen before. I don't think we're going to get very much original here with Star Trek Strange New Worlds. And while it's fine, hey, you know, you want to go recreate the original series, I don't know why you feel the need to do that, because, we want more episodic things and Anson Mount's really good. Yeah, okay. Tell me a great story that I have yet to hear. That's what I want from Star Trek. Tell me something new. Tell me something new. Sarek brought Sarek back, and it dealt with a Vulcan basically losing his marbles because he's through old age. And you know what? When a Vulcan loses his marbles, somebody whose life is based on logic, and it's a very sad tale. You know, it's a very, and how does that mean, and what does it mean? And when you can have mind melds and things like that, you can add to the poignancy of it. But the idea that a Vulcan whose life is based on intellect is losing that intellect, it's a little on the nose, but it's still a beautiful story. And the horror for a Vulcan is palpable in that episode. So, anyway. Look, I'll watch Strange New Worlds. I watch all new Star Trek. I just wish it was better. That's all. Anyway, let's see. There's been a lot of people firing in Super Chats to me, and let's jump right in and see where they're at. By the way, I don't have any letters to read today, but you can send me letters as anyone who's new to this show. I read letters live on the show, and you can send them to me at our website, the Post-Geek Singularity, just postgeeksingularity.com. So check it out. RRTNZ says, Hail Rob, saw Strange New Worlds. In my opinion, Anson Mount's charisma carries it. Rebecca Romaine is good. The new character's not bad, but the Spock stuff is all wrong. Yeah, look, I'm sure Ethan Peck is a great actor. The people that play Spock don't know how to play him. There's this monotone idea. I mean, Ethan Peck is doing the best job he can with what he's given to work on, but that stuff with Spock and T'Pring, what the fuck was that? You know, if you're going to show me Vulcan mating courtship rituals, show me something interesting. Make the Vulcan culture unique and compelling. Show us something different than we would see on any other show. And why do you have to, once again, let's go back and bring another character. Let's go back and steal from another Star Trek episode because we can't come up with something new. I mean, if you want to have Star Trek, I mean, how Spock became the Lothario that James Kirk was in the original series. I mean, he's bedding down Uhura in the movies, and now we see him with T'Pring. I mean, it's so bizarre to me. I'm sure if it was the 70s, all those women that used to write slash fiction about Kirk and Spock would be having a field day with all the sexy time in the show. Bat Talk says, Hey, Rob, I'm 24. I caught COVID in January and binged watched the original series while I was recovering. I fell in love with the show, and I'm finishing up TNG right now. That's what I like to hear. Not just because you agree with me, but because great storytelling, as long as you can put yourself in the right mindset and you understand that stories that were made 56 years ago are different than today, but you can still enjoy them. And Star Trek doesn't, I mean, while, yeah, it looks dated compared to other TV shows, some of those stories, man, they hold up just like they did 56 years ago. Rhett Proctor said, Patrick Stewart said after Picard Season 3, he is very much interested in coming back again as Professor Xavier. As much as I like him in the role, he's getting up there in age. The man is 81 after all. Well, you know, he was kind of a badass, and we all know that he's in Multiverse of Madness. But, you know, I get it. Actors want work. So, which is good. The Jughead. Wow, dude, that's very generous. Thank you. Jughead says, Morning, Rob. I share your distaste for the congealed mess, which is modern Star Trek. I share your pain, bro. I take solace in 5 excellent series, 1969 to 2001, and an excellent animated series. We also have, to varying degrees, 6 excellent Star Trek films from 79 to 91. Star Trek also is my favorite sci-fi series. Love and respect from the UK, bro. Yeah. My whole problem is this. I think if Star Trek were better, they'd make more money. They can put it would come back into the cultural conversation. Star Trek should be the best written show on television. It's not. And it's maddening. You've got, of all the shows on TV, you've got a template for what could be good. But rather than coming up with something new and being informed by that template, they're copying stuff. They're not making... Strange New Worlds is not... It's not groundbreaking, and it should be. John Suntress from the Word Balloon Podcast sends in a tip. If you aren't listening to the Word Balloon Podcast, what's wrong with you? John says, Kurtzman and company don't understand that when they contradict continuity, JLP's mom, we've been rewatching the episodes since the 80s. Despite their lip service, they haven't cared about canon at all. Strange New Worlds had a decent, if uninspired, pilot. I'm still in. Hey, I'm going to watch it. But look, why are the people sitting at con and ops in red outfits? Why aren't they wearing gold? I understand they wanted more color on the bridge, but give me a fucking break, man. Do you understand that the reason uniforms are color-coded in Star Trek is because they delineate which part of the ship, where in the structure? Are you in support services? Are you command? Or are you sciences? I don't think they know that. I really don't. Just like the cast of Discovery didn't even know their ranks. And it just, I watched that. I'm like, why are there 2 people dressed in red at the con and ops? I mean, I don't know. But it makes me angry and my teeth ache when I see this because I'm thinking these producers, clearly, they don't know either. Which means they don't even know the show they're making. Which makes me wonder why I'm even watching. Savage Dragon sends in a super chat and says, "Hey Rob, I remember you once talked about space operas and brought up Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Have you had a chance to check out the remake? Also, any thoughts on the Foundation on Apple TV?" Well, first of all, I liked Foundation. I didn't think it was perfect, but I did enjoy it. I thought it was handsomely mounted. I thought, how do you tell that story? But I liked the story for what it was. I thought it was a compelling science fiction show. I look forward to seeing more of it. Now, what Savage Dragon is referring to is my favorite anime of all time is, I know no one's ever heard of it, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. And Legends of the Galactic Heroes it's set in the distant future, like Dune, kind of 10,000 years or some shit like that. But it's about two warring galactic empires. There's no aliens. Earth has long been abandoned. And it follows Reinhard von Lohengrin and Yang Wen-li, who are two military geniuses on either side of the warring factions, the Free Planets Alliance and basically the Empire. And the show is so sprawling, and it deals basically with every facet of war and and the building of empire and ambition, and it's an incredible show. The original series runs 110 episodes. And they rebooted it. I've seen the first season of the reboot. It was fine, but the original is so incredible. If somebody came to me with a lot of money and said, "Rob, you can make anything you want for television, anything you want," I would make a live-action version of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. If you haven't seen it, look it up, but watch the original. The original, you can find. I mean, it's hard to find. It gets taken down from YouTube, and maybe it's on Crunchyroll. There's a lot of great fan subs out there. I bought Sentai Filmworks' $800 box set of the series on Blu-ray because I'm an idiot, but I had to have it. So I did check out the remake, Savage Dragon, and it was fine. RRTNZ says, "Very sad news. This week we lost Neil Adams and George Perez, giants whose work cannot be equaled. Picked up Crisis on Infinite Earths last month. Still wonderful." Neil Adams and George Perez, two of my favorite comic book artists of all time. Neil Adams, to me, was the definitive Batman artist. I loved his 70s Batman. Of course, George Perez, who I really discovered in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, was one of my favorite superhero artists, whether he was drawing Justice League or the Avengers or Wonder Woman, which he also wrote, the mid-80s revival of Wonder Woman that was post-Crisis on Infinite Earths that he drew. And, of course, his amazing run with Marv Wolfman and the New Teen Titans. I'm a huge George Perez fan. He passed away from pancreatic cancer, which he knew he had. And Neil Adams was 80. Two giants. I mean, these are two giants in 1 week. That's a tough one. Stretchy Hulk says, "Just a thank you for showing again someone can be critical and even negative without being dreaded toxic in your fandom. You're an inspiration." Well, Stretchy Hulk, I was called a toxic feminist today on Twitter, which I thought was interesting. I don't think I've ever been called a toxic feminist. I've been called a toxic misogynist, but I feel like, wow, if you're going to get a label, and if they throw toxic feminist at me, I'm like, look, I'm a humanist. I believe in human rights for all. Let's all live in a more just and verdant society where everybody is free to pursue their dreams, where healthcare and great education are what we get all the time. That when you have depressed areas, we send the best teachers there to make sure those kids get a leg up. I'm a humanist, so that's what I believe in. I like people. All people, really. Science and Reason Lover sends in a $30 tip. Thank you, Science and Reason Lover. "If you could make a new show set after Voyager, would you ignore everything since 2005, including Romulus blowing up, or would you just include stuff from the novels?" Well, they're even pilfering the novels. Spock's first name, for instance, was taken from Barbara Hambly's 1985 Star Trek novel Ishmael. No, I would. If I were to reboot Star Trek, I mean, if somebody said to me, you could, I would go back and I would do two things. I would get Nicholas Meyer to come back and make his SETI Alpha 5 miniseries, because the SETI Alpha 5 miniseries is not just, it doesn't just fill in the blanks about what happened on SETI Alpha 5. It is in itself a great survival story and a great science fiction story. It's great. At his request, I pulled down my review of the episodes because I read them. Why those episodes didn't get made, I will never know. But I would get that made. I would go make, did I say Jeff Jedrinson? Eric Jedrinson. I said Jeff Jedrinson in the beginning of this episode. I'm sorry. It's Eric Jedrinson's script for Star Trek The Beginning. I was thinking of Jeff Jensen. So I am sorry. So yeah, I would just say all this stuff is in an alternate universe and go back to the Roddenberry Berman verse. But that's what I would do. And there's a lot of great stuff in the novels. I don't understand why they don't use those as more of a resource. Kirsten Beyer, who wrote great Voyager novels, is a co-creator of Picard. And David Mack, who's one of my favorite Star Trek fiction writers, was a consultant on Prodigy, but apparently he's not on that show anymore, which is too bad. Electron Star Collapse, our old friend Electron Star Collapse, don't let the stars collapse on you, says, why didn't Nero save Romulus when he went back in time? He played the fiddle while he watched Rome burn. Wait, wrong Nero. And still inaccurate. Well, I don't know. I didn't realize that you'd sent this in. I would have read it earlier. Dumbest villain in science fiction movie history. Dumbest villain in movie history. What a numbnuts. I mean, Eric Bana did the best he could, but what a terribly written character. Oh my God, so bad. D. Duval 59 sends in a super chat and says, well, since apparently they're changing history with Picard having the eugenics wars delayed into the early 21st century, they can basically do whatever they want with a prime timeline now. Yeah, here's what's so funny. So when Blade Runner was made and when it came out, by the way, June, the end of June, we can celebrate, or like, is it June 18th? We'll have to find the exact date. Blade Runner celebrates its 40th anniversary. In June, also, Poltergeist celebrates its 40th anniversary. Star Trek II celebrates its 40th anniversary. And at the end of this month, The Road Warrior celebrates its 40th release in America. And John Carpenter's The Thing. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, they've completely... First of all, if Rios stays in the past, which he's doing, how is he there in the future in the first place? I mean, and Girardi is the new Borg Queen. She's been hanging out for 400 years. Where was she when Alice Krieger was attacking Earth in First Contact? I mean, I don't want to watch these stories. And how come every time a Star Trek episode's over, I always go, wait, what? I don't want to feel that anymore. Cody Boudreau says, I get it, Rob, but at least it's coherent compared to Picard. It's true. Yeah, but if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a wagon. I get, that got sent in twice. Anthony Zappin says, stupid Star Trek. They keep saying that Pike sees his own death, but he didn't die. He was badly burned and eventually lived out the rest of his life on the Telosian planet in perfect health. Kurtzman is dumb. You're right. He didn't die. He was horribly disfigured and wound up staying at the best retirement community ever. That's really great. That's really funny. I can't believe I never thought about that. Mikey Lito, the great Mikey Lito, says, apparently new Trek adapters have trouble thinking up new names. I'm more liberal than you are, and even I have problems with the retcons of April and Kyle. I'm like, what? Look, I don't mind. I've never minded if you want to take a character that we haven't seen before, like Nick Fury. Nick Fury was a white dude. Then in the Marvel Ultimates universe, they made him a black dude, and they specifically drew him as Sam Jackson. So when the MC universe was started, they went and got Sam Jackson to play Nick Fury. I don't care. That's great. That's dope. But the thing is, even though he was animated, we met Robert April and his wife in the Counterclock incident. And to me, when I see they cast a black actor who looked great, I thought he was really good. I'd like to see more of him. But one, he was supposed to be captain of the Enterprise and Pike served under him, but they're basically the same age. I mean, I know that can happen, but still, that was weird. And two, it feels like pandering a little bit. I mean, I don't care. The actor's really good, but I mean, it just seems weird to me. Like, why do that? I would like to have seen, and if you did do it, why not find an older black actor so you could see that Pike was meeting with his mentor? You know, I would love that dynamic. I think that'd be great. They didn't do that. Yeah, April and Kyle, and then, of course, Kyle, I guess Kyle would be the character that comes out as gay. Okay. That's fine. No, Mrs. Spock. James Hoffman sent in a super chat and said, I enjoyed the premiere of Strange New Worlds. My question is, why not do cosmetic surgery for the away team like TOS and TNG did? It would have avoided the problems with Spock reverting back on the planet. Dumb writing. First of all, I agree with you. The technology in modern Star Trek 2 is completely unbelievable, and it drives me crazy. So, yeah. But they need to create these fake problems. They should concentrate more. Like this, I would like to have delved into the civilization more. Like, for instance, here's how you start the show. Captain's log, stardate, blah, blah, blah. Number 1 has disappeared on a survey mission to a civilization on the brink of warp technology. We've gone to investigate. Boom! There you're in. Go. Give me 45 minutes of good Star Trek story instead of, wah-wah time. Mercer Create said Orville made it fresh and smart like Majority World. Yeah, I mean, that was interesting. A little on the nose, but it was interesting. But yeah, you're right. And this world was so unimaginative. If you're creating an alien world, I mean, they're literally two people, two factions arguing, and Pike beams down. Excuse me. Like, it's so glib. RRTNZ said, mate, can you change gears and mention something good? Superman and Lois. Sure, it's goofy, but it gets Superman right. In today's world, that's huge. Cheers. Hey, man, I really like Superman and Lois. I think it's really good. I think they're doing it correctly. So there you go. I liked it. I thought it was good, and I'm still enjoying it. Darren L. MN sends in a tip and says, Rob, is there anything that you enjoyed from Strange New Worlds? I found the CGI cool, but the dialogue to be as crummy as Disco and Picard. Ugh, to Pring. You know what? My God, go look at Arlene Martell as T'Pring. Look at her performance and compare and contrast that with the actress. It's not that she was a bad actress. She was horribly written. I wanted to punch her in the face. Not that I advocate violence against women. I wanted to punch a fictional character in the face for saying such bad dialogue and being totally out of character. And that whole scene was just cringe. I hate using that word, saying, oh, it's cringe. But it's like, really? Here's a scene we've never seen T'Pring and Spock on camera interact this way before. And they're acting like horny teenagers. It was so not... It was not clever. Really bummed me out. The whole look of the show, I think it's way over designed. I don't believe any of it. It looks like a Vegas show version of Star Trek. All the sets, all the costumes. I expect them. I would maybe like it more if every episode was a musical. If Pike would sing, because the sets certainly would. I mean, when you go to Red Alert, everything lights up red. Hey, let's do that. It's cool. General Grievous says, writing for this episode was lazy. The alien species created a warp bomb in 3 months, watching Federation and Klingon fleets in battle through a telescope. I wasn't going to touch on that, but yeah. So this society that develops warp technology was able to see, again, referring back to Discovery, a battle in space, and somehow they figure out warp technology, and they turn it into a dreadful weapon from watching through a telescope. I mean, it's this kind of writing. How is that supposed to work? For who does that work? Certainly not me. Not good. Eric Gant says, thanks to the Trek coverage. Good to see you, Eric. How are you? It wasn't the glowing report I was hoping for, but heaven help me, I'm still leaning towards renewing my Paramount Plus subscription. To a starving man, a saltine looks like a feast. Live long and prosper. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to watch it because I have to watch it. I just wish it was better. And what's amazing to me is, here's what I don't get. I don't get how when they read these scripts, I mean, you read about the hell that the writers on Next Generation went through trying to get their scripts approved by Berman. Who's approving these scripts? I guess when you can be like Alex Kurtzman and, of course, Akiva Goldsman, you can take your Oscar and put it down in front of you and go, I've won an Oscar. So everything I do is great. I guess that's hard to deal with. I don't know what you're going to do. So Rhett Proctor says, now that we basically have John Krasinski as Reed Richards, I hope Marvel gets the Fantastic Four right this time, and Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic is a step in the right direction, and I'm excited. I don't know if he's going to be in a movie of Fantastic Four, though. We'll see what happens. Sledge says, people watching means we'll never get great Trek. Oh, I think we will. I mean, eventually we will, because, I understand they've been trying to create all this Trek to bolster the brand. I don't think they've done that. Now they're making a movie. I don't think they've done that. I don't think they've bolstered the brand enough. The Squish Show, our friends from the Squish Show, said that scene with them beaming down to the planet and their clothes changing while they were beaming down was ridiculous. I mean, they think, see, this is where they think something's cool and it's not. And those designs, yeesh, not so good. Sledge says, do you think Great Trek is impossible in our time? No, not at all. Look at The Expanse. Or, look at, there's so many great things. Oh, the point that I was going to make, by the way, when they made Blade Runner 2049, they didn't say like, well, in 1982 when Blade Runner was made, we didn't have the kind of computer technology and smartphone technology that we have today. And then they would go back and add all that in. When they made Blade Runner 2049, the decision was made that the technology in Blade Runner in 82 is what we're going to build upon. Our society in Blade Runner never had cell phones. Technology advanced differently. Same thing should have been true of Star Trek. Star Trek is a period piece for a future that never existed. So treat that future the way it was always been presented, at least from 1966 to 2005, and build upon that. Why change everything? Change technology. The transporters can change your clothes. Why do that? No, they can't. But now they can. So as a longtime fan, how do I reconcile that in my head? You've just come along and told me something that hasn't been true since 1966, so why should I believe you? So I don't think Sledge, I think what Great Trek needs is great writers who really understand the format. And I'll tell you, there's great Trek writing in the novels. And David Mack, who's one of my favorite Trek novelists, wrote, like, for instance, a great mirror universe duology. He wrote a wonderful 3-book series called Destiny that is both great hard sci-fi and great Star Trek. And it deals with the Borg in a more fascinating and interesting way than any modern Star Trek. I mean, my God, how many questions do you have after finding out Jurati is the Borg queen and has been for 400 years? First of all, how can that be true? If she's the Borg queen, where was she in the future to go back in time in the first place? Even the time travel stuff's like timey-wimey. It doesn't make sense. Keith O'Neill says, rest in peace, George Perez, one of the best ever. Totally agree with that. Totally agree with you. He was one of the best ever. Matt M. says, I gave up on Star Trek during Season 3 of Discovery. I didn't watch Picard, despite loving the character. Kurtz and company killed my enthusiasm for the franchise. Lower Decks is great. DS9 did the grimdark Trek thing way better than the new stuff and still feels fresh and current now. Well, I mean, look at, all you have to do is compare and contrast. We now can show you directly. So Star Trek Picard went back to the same time, the same year, 2024, that Deep Space Nine did in this third season, past tense, when they go back in time and they deal with the homeless situation. Way better in Deep Space Nine. So you can actually compare and contrast how things were done. And it's kind of sad to see how they did it in Picard. It's almost like, and by the way, those people making Star Trek now, they didn't watch past tense. They didn't watch it. Maybe Terry Matalas told them, but they didn't watch it. Rhett Proctor says, also, I don't know if Krasinski will be the 616 Reed Richards. It would be great, but John Watts leaving Fantastic Four before Doctor Strange 2 is weird timing. Yeah, I don't look at much. I don't think he left right before. When we hear things about Hollywood, sometimes it's not at all in real time. Something's already gone down. We don't hear about it for a while. So I wouldn't look into that much. Alex K says, Rob, your existence is futile. The reason we have Spoke as a lead character again is because we're following the Roddenberry principle. Sometimes you have to regurgitate the past so you can vomit the future. Oh, Rob, we have such sights to show you. Yeah, you know what? If you used Spock and got him right, Alex K., that would be a different thing. But you didn't. Captain Robert April sends in a tip and says, I just sent you a letter. Well, if you send it to the website, I can't get to it now. Mike Bodden has to get to it. But I will read it, Robert April. So, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, however you identify across the 28 known galaxies, thank you for coming here. I haven't done Robservations. I'm going to be back, man. I'm doing Robservations. I'm going to try and do it like every other day. I have a very special, this is episode 798 of the show. It's taken me like 5 months to do 25 episodes. I have a very special show coming up for the 800th episode. It's not going to be an 800-minute show. It's not going to have a bunch of guests. I'm going to have one guest and a filmmaker from Ukraine, and who had to flee her country. And I'm going to show some of her work and talk to her, and I'm very excited about it. So look for that. It'll be the next, not the next episode. That'll be episode 799. It'll be the episode after that, sometime in the coming week. So there you go. You can send me letters at postgeeksingularity.com. Go to the website, send me letters. I'm getting back on that letters tip. There is a Midnight Musings tonight, and Lael and will both be on. We're going to be talking about Doctor Strange and the future of the MCU. So there we go, kids. And on that note, I will say, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And on that note, I want to say thanks to my moderating staff. Darren Seeley is here. Good to see you, Darren. Thanks for jumping in. Tom Jr. Jackson is here with the band hammer. And I don't know if anyone else, don't know if Justin Toner was here, but thank you. And I want to thank everybody who generously supports this channel via super chats and tips and memberships. I couldn't do a member call. I was going to do a member call this weekend, but I ended up having to do more Designing Hollywood. I interviewed the aerial supervisor for Top Gun Maverick today, which was really incredible. So that was a lot of fun. So, but we will have a membership call. I might do 3 in a row, so to catch up. And there's going to be more things for members happening soon. And on that note, I would say to everybody, have a better day.